I'd been watching him for weeks. His arrogant smirk, that smug confidence that seemed to radiate off him. Jackson Carter, the man I'd spent the last 2 years trying to outdo, was everything I hated. His presence alone was enough to make my blood boil. He always knew just what to say, just what to do to keep me on edge. Every time I passed him in the office, that tension between us was so thick, I could almost taste it in the air. Jackson was smart, ambitious, always one step ahead of me. It wasn't just his success that irked me. It was how effortlessly he achieved it. Everything came so naturally to him. He made it look easy, and I hated it. It made me feel small, like I could never quite measure up. But that was going to change. It all started with a simple challenge at the office party. A bet, really. Who could close the biggest deal by the end of the quarter? I had to win this. There was no other option. I couldn't let Jackson win. He'd been mocking me for far too long. But when he leaned in close to me, his voice low and dripping with that annoying confidence, I knew this bet was more than just business. Ready to lose again? He taunted, his eyes glinting with mischief. The words were like a challenge, a dare I couldn't back down from. I clenched my jaw, trying to control my anger. Not this time, I shot back. I'm going to win. But the moment the bet was made, I knew I was in trouble. Jackson and I were always at odds, constantly competing, but this was different. The stakes were higher. The tension was thicker. It wasn't just about work anymore. Now, we were forced to spend an entire night alone together. The company had arranged a team-building event at a retreat in the middle of nowhere. Just great. As if spending all day together at the office wasn't enough. They'd conveniently booked our cabins next to each other, as though it was all part of some elaborate setup. I couldn't escape him. The air between us was suffocating as we made our way to our cabins. Jackson's voice was a constant presence, each word he said feeling like a provocation. Every sentence he spoke was a challenge, like he knew exactly what to say to get under my skin. And he did. He always did. I was getting tired of it. Of him. Of us. My patience snapped as we walked towards the cabin. Are you going to talk all night? Or should we just get this over with? I said, the frustration in my voice louder than I'd intended. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, trying to contain the anger simmering beneath the surface. Jackson didn't flinch. Of course he didn't. That smirk of his was still there, the one that always made me want to punch him. "Oh, we'll get it over with, all right," he replied, his voice low, steady, but laced with something I couldn't place. Something that made my stomach twist. The way he said it, it wasn't just the usual arrogant tone. There was something else in his eyes, something that sent a shock of awareness straight through me. We stood there for a moment, just staring at each other, the air thick with tension. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't tell if it was anger or something else. All I knew was that whatever was between us, whatever this challenge had become, it wasn't just about business anymore. The night stretched on, and so did the battle we were fighting. But as much as I wanted to hate him, something about Jackson Carter made it impossible to ignore the pull between us. The push came out of nowhere. A shove, a small confrontation over something trivial. A joke, a comment. Who knew anymore? But suddenly, Jackson was inches from me, his breath warm against my neck, his body pressing against mine. I could feel the heat of his skin, the hard muscle beneath his shirt, and it all hit me like a wave, knocking the air from my lungs. "Don't push me again," I warned, my voice barely a whisper, but it was shaking, betraying the storm that was building inside me. My anger melted into something darker, something I didn't want to acknowledge. Jackson's lips curled into that familiar smirk, one that always drove me mad. "I think you like it," he growled back, his words laced with defiance. But there was something else in them, something I wasn't ready to admit. I didn't expect it, didn't even have time to brace myself. But suddenly, his hand was on my chest, shoving me back against the wall. My breath caught in my throat. His hand was firm, the heat of his touch burning through my shirt. The force of it left me breathless. "Do you?" he whispered, his lips close to mine, his breath hot against my skin. The words were like a challenge, his gaze intense and unrelenting. We were standing there, inches apart, our bodies pressing together, our hearts pounding in a syncopated rhythm. Time seemed to slow. Everything around us vanished. There we were, both breathing hard, staring into each other's eyes, as if the world had narrowed down to just this moment, this confrontation. And for once, it wasn't just anger that lit the fire between us. There was something else, something deeper, something darker that neither of us was prepared to face. I hated him. I hated the way he always got under my skin, how he made everything about him, how he made me feel like I could never be enough. But now, in the heat of the moment, the way he was looking at me, it wasn't the usual animosity. There was something else in his eyes now, something that both terrified and exhilarated me. "I think you've wanted this for a long time," Jackson said, his voice low, thick with desire, like a threat and a promise all rolled into one. My heart was racing. My body trembled, caught between wanting to push him away and pull him closer. I didn't know how to respond. My mind screamed at me to stop, to end this ridiculous rivalry, to push him out of my space and reclaim control. But my body didn't listen. Instead, I leaned in, almost involuntarily, my lips a breath away from his. "I'm not the one who started this," I muttered, my voice barely audible. But Jackson didn't need an invitation. His lips crashed into mine, hot and desperate. I froze for just a second, too shocked to pull away, and then I was lost in the kiss. His lips were hard against mine, demanding, insistent. His tongue slid into my mouth like he'd done this 1,000 times before. I didn't know what the hell was happening, but I couldn't pull away. My body responded before my mind could catch up. There was something brutal about it, something raw and desperate. All the anger we'd carried for years, the rivalry, the competition, the frustration, it bled into that kiss. But there was more than that. There was an undeniable hunger, a need that had simmered beneath the surface for far too long. And now it was bursting free, pulling me in, making me forget everything I'd ever felt about Jackson. It wasn't just a kiss. It was everything. When we finally pulled apart, both of us gasping for air, the silence was deafening. Neither of us moved. We stood there, inches apart, our bodies still pressed close, and the world outside felt so distant, so insignificant. What the hell is wrong with us? I breathed, my voice rough and shaking. Jackson didn't flinch. He didn't back away. He just gripped my shoulders harder, his fingers digging into my skin. "You wanted it. Just like I did," he said, his voice a mixture of accusation and confession. His hands tightened on my shoulders, pulling me back in, and he spoke again, his words thick with meaning. "Admit it. You wanted me just as much as I wanted you." I didn't know how to answer. So I didn't. Instead, I kissed him again, pulling him in with more urgency this time. We couldn't stop now. The rivalry, the hate, it didn't matter anymore. We collapsed onto the bed, our bodies tangled, clothes discarded in a frenzy. Jackson's lips moved over my skin, his hands tracing every inch of me, as though he was marking territory, staking his claim. And I didn't care. I let him. I hate you, I whispered against his neck, the words feeling strange on my tongue. But they were true. In some twisted way, I still hated him. I know, Jackson replied, his voice a mix of satisfaction and something darker. But that's part of the fun, isn't it? I couldn't deny it. There was something about this, the tension, the fight, the release, that felt too good, too right. I don't know how we ended up in the shower, but we did. Water streamed over us as Jackson's hands moved over my body with a hunger I couldn't resist. Every touch sent a jolt through me. I wanted him. I wanted all of him. And the fact that this had started out as hate? Well, that made it even better. Jackson pinned me against the cold tiles, his lips brushing over my skin, kissing me like he couldn't get enough. And I couldn't either. We had never been this close, this vulnerable. And it terrified me. But it also thrilled me in a way I didn't understand. When we finally collapsed back into bed, I didn't know what to think. My mind was a mess of confusion, desire, and guilt. Jackson's hand rested on my chest, and for a moment, everything felt strangely calm. But the moment didn't last. The reality of what we had just done set in. What happens now? I asked, my voice quiet, unsure of where we stood. Jackson didn't look at me, but I could feel his fingers tighten on my skin. I don't know, but I think we both know this isn't over. The next morning, the tension was palpable. Neither of us spoke. We avoided each other's gaze, but the air between us felt heavier than it had the night before. It had been a mistake, or at least, that's what I told myself. But my body didn't agree. I'm not sorry, Jackson said quietly as we dressed. Are you? I opened my mouth to say something. Anything, but the words didn't come. Because deep down, I wasn't sorry either. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. The office was tense. Our rivalry, which had once been so clear-cut, was now tainted by the secret we both shared. We couldn't keep pretending it didn't happen, and neither of us wanted to. A week later, I found myself in Jackson's office again. There was no escape from him now. No way to pretend things hadn't changed. We need to talk, I said, my voice firm but shaky. Jackson raised an eyebrow. About what? About us, I answered, feeling the weight of my words. We can't keep pretending this was just a one-time thing. Then what do we do now? Jackson asked, his gaze serious, his voice raw. I looked at him, searching his eyes for something, anything, that could tell me how he felt. I don't know, I admitted, but I think we need to find out. Jackson stepped closer, his hand resting on my shoulder. I've never been more confused in my life, he confessed. But I know one thing. I can't walk away from you. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to. We were no longer just rivals. The lines had blurred, and I couldn't tell where the competition ended and something else began. But what I did know was that this, whatever this was just the beginning, and I was ready to find out where it would take us.